So Stellar Crown is a set that people are quite excited about. I'd argue it isn't a very good set overall. It's kind of similar to Obsidian Flames. Obsidian Flames is kind of weak, but it gave us Zard and Pidgeot. This is kind of a similar idea. So there's a few cards people are excited about, and I'll also talk about some other stuff. Cards people are looking forward to the most are honestly mostly trainers. So the first trainer, Area 0 Underdepth, the Stadium. If you have a Terra Pokemon play, you can have 8 Pokemon on your bench. It's pretty good. You know, it allows you to fill your bench, and it does make Palkia meta again. Which I'd say is the only deck that is not currently meta that becomes meta next set because of Area 0 Underpass. That is a very good card. Just being able to get your bench up to 8. But other than Palkia, there's not really any new decks that are coming. People expect there to be, but I'm going to show you why there isn't. Briar helps Terra Pokemon. You know, if your opponent has exactly 2 prizes remaining, this turn your Terra Pokemon take an extra prize. It's a very good card in Dragapult and Zard, which are already quite good, especially Zard. So the same decks get better. Crispin is a similar thing. Search deck for 2 energy of different types, put 1 in your hand, attach the other. Good in Pult, maybe in Regidrago. Once again, only really good in decks that already exist. Which is interesting. Giant Tree, people are hyping up. Because you can evolve immediately to a Stage 2. Of course, you have to wait a turn, but then it evolves to Stage 1 and to the Stage 2 in the same turn. For 1 Pokemon per turn. The problem is not only can your opponent use it to evolve their stuff, but additionally, it's using your A-Spec for consistency. Zard is one of the most consistent decks in the format. And this is best used in Zard. Why would you play this when you could just play something like Unfair Stamp to Disrupt or Prime Catcher to Gust or even Cape to increase HP? Because you don't need to use your A-Spec for consistency when you're playing what I'd argue is the most consistent deck in the format. It's also alright at Dragapult, but there's a much better tool for Dragapult. So Dragapult gains Sparkling Crystal, which if attached to a Terra Pokemon reduces it by 1 of any type of energy. Better than Neo, Upper, and Dragapult, but essentially means you can't play Tree to get set up because you need the Sparkling Crystal. Which just makes Tree very overrated. It has uses, but I feel like it's more of a rogue thing. Maybe something like Tinkaton could use it, I'm not sure. Sparkling Crystal, good in Pult, but once again, all this Terra only helps the decks that are already good. If you could use new Terra Pokemon, why would you when you already have Zard and Dragapult? They're so much better than every other Terra Pokemon that supporting Terra essentially just supports Zard and Dragapult. Which doesn't change the meta, in my opinion. Another card people like is Glass Trumpet. If you have Terra Pokemon play, search your deck for, or actually from your discard. So get an energy from your discard attached to your bench colorless Pokemon. It's not amazing, but it is useful. So people are wanting to use this with Terrapagos EX, which is just a colorless Terra Pokemon that you can power up with it. For 2 colorless, 30 for each your opponent's bench Pokemon. You can't use it during your first turn though, which immediately makes it a lot weaker. Then for Grass of Water and Lightning, 180. Next turn, prevent all damage done by attacks to it to your basic non-colorless Pokemon. So the gimmick of this set is Stellar Pokemon, which use a bunch of different types of energy, which is just really tough to power up. The Trumpet can help, but 180 and blocking basics isn't good enough when you only have 230 HP. Because a lot of decks play some evolution that they can hit you with. The one deck this is good in is in Palkia, because its first attack does good damage, and it's a Terra Pokemon. You play it just for triggering 0 Underdepths. It's rarely ever used other than that. So it's essentially just there because it's Terra, similar to Walking Awake and Ancient Box, making it there because it's Ancient. But you never play the Grass energy or the Lightning energy, so it's just kind of there to be on your bench. But it is worth it for that, but people talking about making this as an actual deck is not worth it. It's only good as a bench sitter because of the fact that it is Terra. Fan Rotom, I read it first and thought this would be a really good card. You put 3 colors, put it onto your bench. Once per turn, you can search for 3 colorless with 100 HP or less, put them in your hand. But what I didn't realize is it only works during your first turn, which immediately makes it significantly worse. Because the ones you'd want to get are something like a Bidoof, you know, and a Hoot Hoot. You play it in decks of Noctowl. Noctowl's 100 HP. You can get Noctowl. which when you evolve, searching for 2 trainers if you have a Terra Pokemon in play. Which, getting that is useful, but if you can only do it during the first turn, your opponent just Ionos you, or even Unfair Stance you if you get an early attack, and then you just lose the Noctowl, it goes to the bottom, and now you got a Hoot, and you're gonna have to find pieces to evolve it. Noctowl feels really tough to use as well, because sure, Inteleon is good, but you could evolve it twice. Once you evolve Grizzop, you can still evolve it again and get its use twice. Once you evolve Noctowl, it's done. And sure, I Iono to a low hand, you're gonna hope you have a draw engine, because you can't really Ultra Ball with like a hand of 1 card from Iono. Which means you're not gonna be able to find your Noctowl, and if your Noctowl is your setup, you're not gonna be able to set up late game. You're just gonna lose to Disruption. And you could play a 1-1 Bibarel. I've seen some decks playing it, but a lot of them are just cutting it and only playing Noctowl. Which seems like you just lose a Disruption if you can't find your Noctowl, because you have to play it when you evolve it rather than it working every turn it's in play. Which is really tough. All this Terra support seems really good on paper, but another thing that really hurts, they just removed your Terra Pokemon from play, and it all stops working. And a lot of these decks play low counts of Terra Pokemon because there's not that many good Terra attackers if you're using it just for the Terra support. Like, if you put Terrapagos down and Palkia, it's just there for support, which means they knock it out, you have to get it back or you're just doing nothing. What's even worse is a ruling on Area 0 Underdepth. When you knock out the Terra Pokemon, before you choose a new active, you have to discard down to 5 on the bench. No, actually, yes, that's correct. Which means you end up, instead of having 5 Pokemon play, because it's like, they knock you out, you bring up a Pokemon, then you discard down to a bench of 5. Instead, they knock you out, then you discard to a bench of 5, then you bring up, meaning you only have 5 Pokemon to play rather than the 6 you would have otherwise. Which means they knock out the Terra, your Stadium no longer works, you lose 4 Pokemon, the one they knocked out, and 3 bench Pokemon. Then you have to bring up another Pokemon. That is not ideal. It really hurts. So just removing your Stadium causes problems, and especially knocking out your Terra completely ruins your entire board state. And if they stamp you at the same time or Iono you, there's not much you can do to come back from that. It's really tough. Another card I've seen a lot of hype for, Bouffalante. I admit this card isn't bad. It says if you have another Bouffalante in play, your basic colorless Pokemon takes 60 less from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. You can only apply 1 at a time. So people are saying, well, you can use a Lost Origin Bouffalante, which for 3 colorless says 60 and lost things and energy from your opponent's active. Now let me actually look up the Lost Origin Bouffalante for y'all. To show how I don't think that quite works. So, problem is 130 HP. With this, essentially 190. Most things can hit 190. Then you attach a cape. A lot of decks play tool removal or jamming tower or something. Some don't. So maybe you survive 1 turn. Which is not bad to survive 1 turn. But you're removing 1 energy at a time. And if you're surviving 1 turn, once your Bouffalante's knocked out, your cape's gone. And now for the rest of the game, the opponent just 1-hander Bouffalante. Also, things like Dusknoir can try to knock out your Bouffalante earlier by using Dusknoir. Things like Zard can do more damage. You can use Dragapult to knock out a Bouffalante and something else in the same turn. And damage counters go 3. Time till next round, 10 minutes. So it's definitely tough, especially because so many things have effective attacks. Like Roaring Moon just knocks you out, which means it goes through Bouffalante. Damage counters from Dragapult or Regidrago, copying Dragapult, also go through Bouffalante. And so many decks play a surplus of energy. Zard plays low energy, almost everything else plays a lot. Which means lost owning a few energy is tough. Now, if this costs 2 colorless, I would say it was good. 3 colorless is very hard to power up without using some kind of supporter. And if you're using a supporter to get powered up, it's not ideal. You can also use the Glass Trumpet thing. But once again, they just knock out your Terra Pokemon immediately. That doesn't work. And because all Terra Pokemon are 2-prizers, if you're putting a basic 2-prizer that is easy to knock out, then they're getting so ahead of the prize trade that you're not getting rid of their energy fast enough anyway. Now, all of those cards have uses, but one of my biggest problems with the set is a lot of the cards are just useless. So, first of all, there's a lot of reprints. So you've got, up top, if I go here, I will find things like Blastoise EX and Venusaur EX. Here's the problem. This is the same Venusaur and Blastoise EX you've had before. I also did illustration rares of the pre-evolution. We've had these cards in the past. They were not good, and they are being reprinted. Why are you taking up some of the set list of an already small set? This is one of the smallest sets in a long time, with reprints. It's, like, tough. Additionally, you've got things like the Stellar Pokemon, which are the main mechanic of the set. But most of them are just terrible, because they cost 3 different types of energy to attack. Which is really hard to consistently power up. There are ways, but... like, this attack, sniping 180 for a fire, a fighting, and a dart, on a stage 2... it's just never worth it. Why would you get 3 energy on to do less damage than a Zarda can do? Sure, you snipe, so many things play Manaphy. I mean, it's just a terrible card. You could make this cost the same attack, the same amount as the first attack, of Fire and 2 colorless, and it still wouldn't be that great. But it has a ridiculous attack cost, it makes it impossible. Stuff like Lapras, sure, it can attach many energy from the top 20 cards of your deck. But you need 3 types of energy, and you're knocked out for 2 prizes immediately after because you only have a low 220 HP. And the final issue is the Battle Academy cards. So, things like Greninja EX. Watercolors, 100 flip a coin if head to 100 more. That's not very good. Maybe it could be useful, but that's not the worst of it. They have... what's a better example? Where is the, there are some really good examples of bad Battle Academy. These are cards from starter decks in Japan, by the way. Like, this Pathra. 1 psychic, 50 damage. That's the only attack. Why would I ever use this? Like, I would be fine if this was in a starter product. It's part of the set. And that immediately makes the set just not fun to open. Because if you pull this as Pathra, you're not going to be happy. You don't want to pull it as Pathra. It's definitely something you never want to pull. Here's the bad card, Lucario. In EX, that for 2 fighting colors says 120, or for a fighting color says 50. That is one of the worst... That might be the worst attack I've ever seen on an EX. But it's one of the EX of the set, which means if you're going to pull an EX, you could pull a Terapagos. Or you're just as likely to pull a Lucario. Which nobody wants to pull Lucario. It's the same problem I have with Fusion Strike, same problem I have with Obsidian Flames. It just makes a set not as fun to open. I will admit the set will change meta, but similar decks other than Palkia, and a lot of really weak cards, like this Reverie to 100 for 3 energy. But if you enjoy it, that's great. Also, let me know what you think of the set. I'm wondering if anybody has a reason why this set is really good and I'm missing something. Because it's very possible the set is impactful and I just don't realize. Anyway.